Hello? I
Hello.
can't hear. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the ALCOSAN Advisory Committee meeting of November 15th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded. We'll open the meeting with a roll call. Stevie?
Good afternoon, all. Cindy Bond, Bain. Lisa Werder Brown. Lloyd Cunningham. Dan DeMarco. Patricia DeMarco.
Dan DeMarco is here.
Tina Doucet.
Hello?
This is Tina. I'm here. Tina Doucet is here.
Got it. Nick Rusoff.
Nick is here.
Mark Heckman.
Here.
John Henry.
Present.
Kelly.
Here.
Rebecca Kiernan.
Here.
Ken Lasota. Ruth Ann Omer.
Hi, everybody. It's snowing out here in the South Hills, just so you know.
Will Pickering. Mary Ellen Ramage. Tim Rogers.
Here.
Kathy Sapp. Danielle Ventresca.
Here.
Sean Alfonso Wells.
Stevie, do you have Cindy on there?
I have 13.
Do you have Cindy?
And Cindy Bond is here.
Yes, I have her. I have 13.
Well, with our full contingent of 21 filled vacancies and seats, we only needed 11 for a quorum, so we have made it this month.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for attending. And I want to give a special recognition to those of you who are attending via Zoom. We appreciate you taking the time out. So we'll open up with the introduction of new members. Jeannie?
Sure. We're delighted to have 3 of our new members here today. Cindy, JR, and Kelly. All 3 of them, plus Sean did come to ALCOSAN and we provided orientation for them. So Cindy, why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
I'm Cindy Bond. I'm the Director of Administrative Services in Bellevue. Everybody else calls the position a manager, but Bellevue is a home rule charter community, so we do things a little differently here. This is my 4th local government position. I'm a licensed attorney. I have an MBA and a master's in early childhood education. I've had a lot of careers. This, I think, will be my last one.
That master's in childhood, whatever, is probably going to help working with us. JR. So good to have you on the board.
Oh, good afternoon. I'm J.R. Henry. I'm the mayor of Westview. I also am very passionate about emergency medical services. I currently serve as the EMS chief for Valley and Quaker Valley ambulance authorities. And I'm happy to be part of the group. Thank you.
Thanks, JR. And Kelly, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Kelly. I am the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Community Engagement Manager with Connect at the University of Pittsburgh. I am also the former mayor of Turtle Creek Borough.
Great, thank you all. It's a great addition, and we'll hear from Sean probably in January. Just before we move on to the minutes, I just wanted to correct 2 typos on the minutes, on the July minutes, on the 3rd page. The 3rd from the bottom. Committee is off in August and September, just delete and September on that. And then on the September meeting, again, 3rd from the bottom, note meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum, just erase due to lack of quorum.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Welcome to the new members. We'll start with action items. Possible approval of the minutes of July 2022. When you
So moved.
when you make a motion, would you please give us your name so we can put it
So
in the
moved. This is Ruth Ann Omer.
Second.
motion and a second. Question on the motion. Being called, all in favor, give your consent by saying aye or give us a thumbs up if you're on video.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it so ordered. Possible approval of the minutes of September 2022. Your pleasure.
Second.
Motion and a second here. Question on this motion. Being called, in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it so ordered. Rate update. Karen Fantoni?
Yes.
Karen, you're up.
Good afternoon, everybody. I see everybody here and on Zoom. We are just going to take a few moments and kind of go through what our rate setting process looks like. We were asked to go into some detail as to how we go about the process of setting rates. So this is going to be pretty elementary for some people. So, but if you do have questions, please go ahead and just ask, and we'll try to address them as we can as we go along. Feel good. All right, how do I make it? Oh, no. You did that. All right, good. All right, so to start with this slide here, this slide should look familiar to some of you. We've seen this slide before. It's always good to start with where we've been. So this is our rate history, where we started out in 2006. So this is the last 20 years, and this has been updated through what our increases are going to be that have been already approved by the board out through 2026. So if you look here, midway through the presentation on the slide here, 2014 was the first year that we started adopting multi-year rate increases. So in 2014, we came out with a 4-year rate increase. It was 17%, 11, 11, 11. That took us down through 2017. 2018, we decided to do another 4-year rate increase. And again, that was 7.5, and then 7s for the rest of the 3 years, that 4-year rate increase. And then again, last year, we came out with a 5-year rate increase, and we kept it steady at 7% through 2022 through 2026. Some of the advantages that we've seen with a multi-year rate increase is it prevents sticker shock for a lot of the municipalities that are out there. There you have the ability to plan and look forward. It was funny, last year, before we actually did the rate increase, our customer service and billing department, which reports up through finance, was getting inundated with calls from our municipal customers as what is the rate going to be? Because they have to do their own budgeting and they have to do their own planning as well. So multi-year rate increase really helps them understand where we're going to be through this process. So it's another advantage that we have in doing a multi-year rate increase, other than to the rating agencies, which we'll get to in a little bit. We're very heavily debt funded. Those rating agencies love the multi-year rate increase. They love the fact that we're not coming back to the board every year and saying, okay, what do you think rates need to be this year? It takes a lot of the uncertainty out of that process. So again, we've done these multi-year rate increases. We've been very successful with those. It holds us true to those rates. And if we were looking at doing those rates today, I don't know that we would be at 7%. Inflation certainly was a lot higher this past year than what we had budgeted for and anticipated in that rate model. So again, we pulled us through to those rates as well. Okay, so what does that mean for us from this year? So we look at where we were in 2021 compared to where we were in 2022. At the end of the day, the average homeowner paid $3 a month more in ALCOSAN bill. $3. Okay, so there's a lot, to be said for that. I mean, we've held that pretty close, but $3 a month for an average household. An average household in this case is a household that uses about 12,000 gallons of consumption a month. A quarter. So again, this is pretty much where we're at. from last year to this year. We are going obviously to raise rates again, the 7% going forward into 2023. And again, those same ratepayers are going to spend about $3.20 more a month in their ALCOSAN bill. Okay, so we look at the rate setting process. What does that mean? How do you set rates? Very simply, it's math. Okay, it's math. It's a very complex word problem. We have to look at how much money, where do rates need to be? We're solving for X. X is the rate, right? Where do rates need to be in order to get the money that you need? You times your rate, times your consumption. Where does that need to be, that number, that revenue have to be in order to pay for all the obligations that ALCOSAN has to incur over the next year? That's how we set rates.
Is that analysis done internally, or do you have an outside agency that consults?
We do both.
Okay.
So when we look at what we know, so we start with what we know. What do we know ALCOSAN is going to have to pay for? So we start with the budget, right? We have to know what are we budgeting for going forward. So we look at our legal commitments, things that we are legally obligated to pay for. One of the most expensive ones, the one that you're most familiar with, is the Clean Water Plan. That is a federally mandated program. We have to pay for it. Don't pay for it, we get fines, penalties, and someone can be wearing an orange jumpsuit, and it's not going to be me, because I ain't going to jail, because I will always make sure that I'm going to propose a rate strategy that's going to be able to meet this obligation. Okay, we also have to pay for our debt service. All right, Joey's back. Okay, so we need to pay for the debt service, and we can't fund some capital as well. So we have Clean Water Plan, all those expenditures related to that, which translate into the revenue that we need to pay for the debt service and to pay for the cash funded capital. All right, what other legal commitments does ALCOSAN have? Employees, right? We have employees. We have union contracts, right? 2/3 of our employees are union. So we have to pay the union rates on those contracts. We know what those increases are going to be. Those are known. We know what their benefits are going to cost for the most part. We know what pension funding we have to do. The actuary tells us every year what our MMO calculation is. We fund the MMO 100%, like most municipalities do.
So your pensions are defined benefit pensions?
We have 2 defined benefit pensions.
Okay, are there any new pension changes for new employees? Or you're
No.
going on a 401k or anything like that?
We do not have a 401k. We have a 457 plan that is not
457.
funded by the authority.
So there's no defined contribution.
There is no defined contribution plan. It's all defined benefit plan. There's probably about 30 pages on the defined contribution plan in the audit and financial statements, which are available on our website.
And the current funding for the pension, what percentage is covered in the pension?
The union plan is over 100% funded, and the management plan is not quite 100% funded.
Okay.
So, and we also have some small OPEB liability. The OPEB liability is cash funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. We do not have a trust for the OPEBs. So again, what are our other legal commitments? Debt service, right? We have the trust indenture that requires us to have rate covenants. There's a 2-pronged rate covenant test that we need to make sure that we have the funding in place in order to meet that. Otherwise, the bonds would become callable, which is very bad. You don't want to be in that situation. We also have to have tax reserve. There's a minimum level of cash that the trust indenture requires us to maintain at all times. And then also, additionally, we are required to pay in advance of our annual debt service. We pay debt service twice a year, June 1st and December 1st are our 2 debt service payments. Actually, I just transferred the money yesterday over to pay the December 1st debt service payment for this year.
Ballpark, what is your bond debt?
What is our bond debt?
Yeah, current bond.
Right now for 2022, we paid $60 million in annual debt service.
16 or 60?
60. That will be going up. Okay, so what other commitments do we have to fund? Right, so we're still talking about things that we are obligated to fund. We have a customer assistance program. That's a very popular program. Everyone seems to like that. We'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of the presentation, but we have to fund that. Pro grant takes. Those are all funded out of operations. We do not fund grow out of debt. We cannot fund grow out of debt. Cash funded capital. We're putting money away to help fund the expenditures related to the clean water plan and our organic capital. Operating contracts like Three Rivers Wet Weather. We are obligated to provide funding for those contracts. Municipal lump sum reimbursements, okay? All our municipal customers get a lump sum reimbursement once a year. We're obligated under the Z agreements to make those cash payments. We have to budget for those. Operating and maintenance of the plant and regional system. Well, why is that under a commitment? Well, because we are obligated to maintain that to a certain level. We're under the C agreements require us to maintain it at a certain level, and the trust indenture requires us to maintain it at a certain level. We actually even have our consulting engineer who will come in here and review all this information and prepare a report that goes to the board in December as to whether or not we've met that obligation. And obviously, we also have insurance, which is also required not only by the trust indenture, but by good practice. Okay, so what are the unknowns? Okay, those are all things that we know. Every year we know we have to pay for them, right? What do we don't know? Well, we have to make assumptions, right? We have to make best guess. What is our number of employees? So, you know, we guess based upon what we think we need. We sit around in the budget room and we talk about what our staffing needs to be. And we look at who's going to be retiring and what we need to do to replace those. And quite frankly, this past year, we weren't able to attract the talent that we thought we would. I know everybody's having hiring needs, but we have to make assumptions as to how many employees do we think they're going to have? What are their benefits going to cost us? Okay. What are the rates of inflation? We take that into consideration when we're setting rates, right? We have to know based upon our rate model, what do we think inflation is going to be? And I can tell you right now, when we did the rate model last year, we did not guess that inflation was going to be as high as it is today. Insurance. Okay, what is the cost of insurance? How much is it going to cost? Our insurance cost this year came in a little higher than what we had anticipated. We're going to be going out for a whole new insurance program next year because we're trying to bring those insurance costs down. What is the timing and the amount of the capital expenditures? Yes, we know we've all talked about the $2 billion plan, the $2 billion in 2010 dollars, which is really going to end up costing what, about $3.6 billion before it's all said and done through 2036. Yes, but when are we going to spend that money? And how much are we going to spend each year? And that has a direct impact on how much money we have to go out and borrow and how much that debt service is going to cost. So we have to plan ahead when you're setting rates for multi-year rate agreement. You have to plan ahead. How much money do we need? When do we need it? Interest rates. What is interest rates? So I don't know, like we're very fortunate. We enjoyed some very lucrative interest rates the last couple of years in the debt market. On the other side of the market, the investment side was anemic. There was no interest income. You'll see that in a slide or two here. But we have to make assumptions about where do we think interest rates will be. And lastly, we have to talk about bill consumption, and there'll be another slide that we'll talk a little bit more later in the presentation about bill consumption, because revenue isn't just rates. It's rates times bill consumption, right? So you take consumption times rates equals revenue. So we have to understand where do we think that bill consumption number is going to be, and every year it goes down. Every year that bill consumption number goes down. Okay. All right, so where are we as far as like if we look at our operating budget compared to our debt service? So this is where we've been since this way over here in 2018. I'm sorry, you can't see it because there's
You know what? I had a quick question. You said every year the consumption rate has decreased. Is that correct?
The amount of usage, the amount of consumption has decreased. That is correct.
So are there some automatic things that you look to do based upon that consumption rate decrease?
Well, we don't control consumption. That comes purely from the water data that comes from the water companies. We purchase water data from the water companies. So, for example, a lot of times you see consumption go down because people are using more energy efficient appliances. Their washing machines, their toilets are more, they don't use as much water. It's also tied to your seasons. If we have a wet summer, bill consumption goes way down. People are not topping off their swimming pools. They're not watering their grass. But in dry seasons, consumption, we've actually seen upticks in consumption. These past couple of years has been really crazy with COVID because what we've seen is flip-flopping of consumption. So back in 2020, when COVID first started and everything shut down, our commercial consumption went way down. But then what we saw was an uptick in the residential consumption because everybody was staying home. And now what we've seen gradually in the last year and a half, 18 months, you've seen a switch back. Now you see the consumption coming up on the commercial end and the residential consumption decreasing. But
Okay, and what, the only question I'm asking, is there operationally or another way that those costs can go down based upon that? I mean, I don't know if there's any correlation with that, and I know you don't. Okay.
And the reason why is because we only bill, I think it's 28% of what we treat here. So all those variable costs that go into treating the operations of treating the sewage that comes into the plant, the waste that comes into the plant, we only bill about 27% of that comes from the water data. The rest of it is coming, it's ionides coming into the plant, it's stormwater coming into the plant. So we're not billing all that. So there's nothing here operationally that we can say, okay, well, we had, you know, a little bit less consumption, so we're going to cut back on this particular chemical, or we're going to cut back on this particular process. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I just, you know,
So back to this particular slide, here's our debt service compared to our operations. And if you look here for the last 5 years, you can see that our debt service has maintained a pretty solid number. We've actually saved during refundings in probably about 10 years, this 10-year period here that goes back a little further than this slide, over $100 million in refunding. So, but what happened a couple of years ago, the tax law changed. We no longer can do those advanced refundings. And so we're kind of stuck now. We have to do current refundings. And so they are more costly. You don't have the savings that you typically have seen, that we've seen in the past. The last refunding we did was back in 2020. We refunded the 2010 bonds, and we saved the authority on a cash flow basis almost $39 million.
You mean refinanced?
With that,
You mean refinanced?
we use the term refunded, not refinance, but it's a different terminology thing. It's similar to refinancing. So, because when you refund it, you're actually paying, you're paying off that debt, and you get a new debt. So here's the debt service. Now, I will tell you, when we go out here for 2022, we have issued, just finalized last week, issuing new bonds. So our new bonds are going to be about $265 million par value bonds. So our debt service for 2023 is estimated to go up by about another $60 million above what we were this year. So we're at about $60 million for debt service for 2022. Our debt service for next year will be about $77 million. Joey? All right, so what does this all mean? It means that our revenue has to equal our obligations. We talk a lot about what goes into the assumptions on the obligation side, right? What all do we have to pay for? Well, we talked about the word problem, right? We're solving for X, right? So the revenue has to fund everything we talked about. So when we look at some of this information here, this is just showing you what's happening with our customers in our customer service area. What's going on with consumption? We've already kind of talked about that. So if we look at our number of customers, our customer number is actually hanging in there and actually has increased a little bit over the last 5 years. So we went from 314,000 customers, number of households back in 2017 to 316 now in 2022. So the households are increasing. So we're not losing people, which is a good thing. But if you look at the consumption on the other side, this chart over here, our billed wastewater flows. This is what we're actually billing for. That's gone down. 2017, we were billing for over 21 million T gallons, and now we're looking at 19 is what we're estimating for 2022. Joe. So where does the revenue come from? It comes from our ratepayers, right? So if you look at the big blue circle here, this big chunk of the pie, that's the commodity charge. So that is certainly, that's all based on usage, that's all based on billed water flow. And that makes up the majority of our revenue. We have a little bit here for the service charge, that's the quarterly service charge. And then we have this little teeny tiny yellow line here, which is our interest in our other revenue. So as I said previously, our interest income has been anemic. Now, one of the good things is we've actually received some interest income this year. And so we're actually starting to get a little bit of interest income back in again, which is a good thing. But again, in the whole scope of where we need to be from a budgeted revenue perspective, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. So again, the majority of our revenue is received via our rate structure, but we are actively looking at other sources of funding such as grants. So we are actually actively out there looking for that. Jean has done a really nice job working with the Army Corps of Engineers and some of the other places out there to try to solicit grant revenue for ALCOSAN. We've historically done a nice job of trying to help solicit grant funding for some of our municipal customers, but we're going to change that focus internally and start looking for ourselves and start looking to try to bring some of that grant revenue home.
Are you looking to state, federal, or both for grant funding?
Correct.
Both, okay. I know that the federal government just gave 454 million to Tijuana, Mexico for their sanitary sewer system. And it'd be nice if they maybe spend a little bit of money here.
It would be nice if they would, but I can't account for the federal government.
Okay, so we're working with, do you have grant funder support? I mean, you working directly with Congress, or do you have a paid?
I have both paid assistance from a lobbying firm in
Yeah,
DC, plus I work directly with all the elected officials.
Okay, so when we set the rates for 2022 through 2026, what was our strategy? What were we looking to do? So again, number one, was maintain a strong debt service coverage ratio and to maintain the strong bond rating. S&P just bumped us up. We're AA rated now by S&P and Moody's. We're AA minus from S&P. We got a nice bump this last time we went out there. And in order to do that, there's certain things that they like to see. They like to see cash. They want to make sure that you have cash on your balance sheet. They want to make sure you have those multi-year rate agreements in place. They like to look at management. They look at a variety of things and when they're doing those analysis. And we need to make sure that we have those high ratings, because the higher your ratings are, the cheaper your interest costs are going to be when you go out into the market. So we want to have a predictable and stable rate increases to allow the customer municipalities to plan and to avoid rate shock. Right, that is part of our plan. We looked, when we did this last rate increase, we looked at what would it be if we didn't raise rates for a year or didn't raise rates for 2 years. And the end result was at the end of the plan, the end of 2036, the ratepayers would be paying more to catch up for those years that they didn't pay any increases. So we looked at a variety of different scenarios. We didn't just say, hey, you know what, let's just keep it at 7% and just be done with it. This was a long process. This is a very long, detailed process where we looked at a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different assumptions. We want to reduce long-term borrowing requirements where possible. So to the extent that we can cash fund some of that, we want to try to do that. And then to keep the first phase through 2036 of the Clean Water Plan as affordable as possible. Again, we always keep in mind what those ratepayers have to pay. We know that it's a burden. We know that the Clean Water Plan is expensive, but it is federally mandated and it's going to need to be done. And it's our job to make sure it's done in the most affordable way that it can be done. Okay, so this was the rate schedule that was adopted back last fall. And so again, it's showing the 7% rate increases throughout 2026. So when we do the rate resolution, how does it get approved? Our multi-year rate resolution, again, is predictable, stable rate increases, well received by the rating agencies. It's required to be approved by the board of directors. So last fall, it was approved. The multi-year rate resolution was approved by the board of directors. That is the only approval that we need to raise rates. 60-day advance notice is made to the municipal customers of rate increases. So again, every year before we would raise rates, our rates typically increase in January 1. those municipalities would get a notice, a written notice from ALCOSAN saying that those rates are going to go up and what those rates are going to be. All right, I find this slide really interesting. This is cost of clean. This is from a report back in 2020. And it's basically talking about what does it cost? What is the average cost of clean for wastewater treatment plants in the United States? So the U.S. Consumer Price Index rose at an annualized rate of approximately 2% between 2014 and 2021. Okay, 2%. This cost of clean by NatWalk, it stated that the governmental wastewater agency's average annual charge increased twice the rate of inflation between 2000 and 2020, 4%. The average wastewater treatment rose 4% a year in that time frame. Okay, that's 4%, not counting the people that are under a federally mandated consent decree. So we're asking 7% of our ratepayers, right? So if we have 4% is just your normal average rate increase, that gives us 3% to implement the clean water plan. That's pretty incredible. So last thing here, they're projecting that wastewater costs will increase at an annualized rate of about 4.3% nationally from 2021 to 2025. And again, this was all done before the inflation that we're experiencing right now. So what are our opportunity costs? What if we didn't raise rates? What if we didn't do this rate strategy? What would happen? So our ability to assume ownership, regionalization, right? Regionalization, we wouldn't be able to do that because we wouldn't have the money to maintain and operate and repair those additional 267 miles of intermunicipal trunk sewers. We wouldn't be able to do that. Our long-term borrowing requirements would increase significantly. So what happens if our borrowing increases, right? Our rates will go up even more. Our current excellent and stable bond ratings, would be weakened, and it would be impossible to implement the clean water plan without exceeding the 2% regional affordability that we've been trying so hard to keep in line. So, okay. Last slide, I promise. This is the Clean Water Assistance Fund. Back in 2017, we established this fund. It is a program to serve our most vulnerable ratepayers. So it serves all the low-income residential customers in all 83 municipalities that are served by ALCOSAN. Right now, it provides $40 a quarter to those people that qualify. That money is applied directly to their bill. So it's not cash that goes into their pocket. It's money that gets applied to the ALCOSAN charge on those bills. This program is administered by the Dollar Energy Fund, which also administers many other programs similar to this, so they can kind of cross-functionalize with us and versus what PwC is doing and some of the other programs that are out there. So they have a broader area to be able to make those judgments. And then eligible customers must have gross income of 150% or lower of the federal poverty income guidelines. So that's a great program. It's out there. Please make sure that the people in your municipalities are aware of the program. We fund it every year. We make sure that there's, that this fund is available to it. We will take another look at the $40 as we go through the budget process this year and we present the budget to the board. We'll also recommend what we think that the grant should be for 2023. We tend to try to keep that to be 1 month of the report. We try to do that to be about 4,000 T gallons is really where we try to target that number from. So there is a little methodology behind that. So that is the update on rates. Hopefully you found it interesting, if not educational, and that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Karen, thank you. Any questions? Any questions from our Zoom partners?
Hi, Karen, this is Cindy. I'm curious, the number of customers who are receiving assistance, what have those numbers looked like over the last 5 years?
Cindy, I'll have to get back to you. I have those numbers for the end of last year, but I do not have them currently, but I can get those numbers to you.
just curious about the impact of COVID and, so what those numbers look like pre-COVID and what's changed or not.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a huge impact related to COVID. A lot of the applications are online or, they're not necessarily done in public, like person to person. So I think that a lot of people were still able to take that advantage of those opportunities. And, once you apply for it, I think you were able to stay in the program. You just had to provide them some additional information.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Rebecca's got her hand up, Tim.
Pardon?
Said Rebecca.
Rebecca?
Yep. Hi, this is Rebecca from the city of Pittsburgh. I have a question and a comment. The question is about the Dollar Energy Fund. Are ratepayers expected to apply for that specifically through ALCOSAN, or does that come grouped with their bill, in our instance, to PWSA?
If you apply through the Dollar Energy Fund, so if you find there's information on the ALCOSAN website, but it is not through PWSA. It's separate from the program that PWSA has with Dollar Energy Fund.
So if someone is eligible for that funding, they would have to apply separately for ALCOSAN funds, for PWSA, for Duquesne Light, for natural gas. Is there a way to streamline that?
Dollar Energy Fund will refer people that apply for one of those programs to apply for other ones, but there are certain criteria that may be different, and so they do need to apply separately for the programs. But Dollar Energy Fund, because they administer all those programs, can kind of cross qualify people.
Okay. And then my comment is about grant funding. So we've been, hyper aware of there's bipartisan infrastructure law funding and also Inflation Reduction Act funding that's pretty unprecedented or is unprecedented. Amounts of funding that's available to go towards infrastructure exactly like this. So I would, hope that we're going after as much grant funding, federal grant funding as we possibly can. And if that's able to correspond to keeping rates down for our ratepayers, I would hope that we're doing the best we can to take advantage of all that.
We are doing the best we can, and Jean does a tremendous job working with that. Now, as you've seen the numbers, it would take a significant amount of grant funding in order to really impact the rate structure. We're talking significant grant funding before we would actually be able to look at how the impact is on the rates. But yes, we are actively pursuing any federal, state grant money that we can get.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to grow update. Tim?
Thank you, Tim. I don't have a presentation. This will be very quick, verbal.
Okay.
Update. Where we're at with the 2022, we have dispersed over $5.3 million to the customer municipalities. Since the inception of GROW, so far we have reimbursed municipalities $16.6 million. So roughly 1/6 of the total GROW budget has been dispersed. Where we're at right now, our total commitments, we're almost at $75 million in total commitments. So these are awards that we have offered and have been accepted. Of those payments, 16.6 million. Funds that have come back to us either through projects that have come in under budget or projects that have been rescinded. That's about $5.6 million. So far, total GROW commitments outstanding is about $52.3 million. And I know these are right because they came from Karen.
Karen doesn't want to go to jail.
Karen will not go to jail. She'll make somebody else into jail. Believe me.
Hey, Tim, when you say a project is rescinded, what's the nature of the rescission?
Sometimes the municipality realizes that they cannot afford their portion of the project and they elect to not go forward with the project. Or a municipality may have done a redesign of the project and felt that they haven't yet implemented it, and so they rescind an old grant and put in for a new grant. with the idea that they have a chance of getting more funding from ALCOSAN through that redesign. Cycle 7 update. We had invited 17 projects. We offered awards to 13 of those projects. One green infrastructure project, Homestead, a sewer separation project, and 11 I&I projects. Grand total of these potential awards were just over $7 million this cycle. So that ended up being a total match of 54% match when all said and done. We are now in cycle 8. We reached out to our customer municipalities to set up workshops. We've given them the opportunity to set the time that fits their schedule instead of the way that we've done it in the past, where we set the schedule and municipalities show up when we tell them to. Now we're putting the power of setting these meetings up with the municipalities. So that's been working not too bad. It's been a little slow transition, but we're going to have these municipal meetings through January now. Okay. And I believe that's about it for me.
Thank you. Tim, any questions for Tim?
We talked to you about setting up a workshop.
Yes, you can talk to me and I can walk Corsos through what needs to happen to get on the schedule. So I just should be done.
Very good, thank you. Three Rivers Wet Weather, Dave? No.
Chairman, we had elected official meetings in the month of October. We had 51 attendings. We updated them on the budget requirements of the consent agreement, which they will have to comply with what is coming up in 2023. And so that those meetings went well and were well received. We're also working with 16 multi-municipal POCs, points of connections. We have them scattered all over. There's about 40 municipalities. We're working on joint projects, which dovetailed into not only working on the consent agreement approaches, but we're also working with them on any of the transfer of the multi-municipal lines, which is going very well. And we had our annual conference last week, and we had 450 attendees and 90 exhibitors. Total of all the people there of 730. ALCOSAN was our keynote speaker this year, and we heard a lot of positive feedback of what is going on with the plant expansions.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Dave? Hearing none, we'll move on to Kim Kennedy on the clean water plant. Kim?
Thank you. So I just wanted to give a couple high-level updates on the plant expansion. Back in September, we awarded our next kind of big flagship project. I've talked a lot about the north end. I've talked a lot about East Headworks, but the CSO bypass and disinfection was awarded. That's another $90 million project that will allow that split for 295 million gallons per day to go all the way to the north end for full treatment. And then the rest of it, the balance up to 600 to get preliminary treatment and then be bypassed
How does
to.
Karen take these when you come in their office?
Yeah. Well,
My
yep. I'm used to it. So, and so that's construction. That's, that was a major milestone in a pretty volatile year. And then the second thing is that we're on schedule to award our next design project. So there's 3 more projects that still need to be designed for the overall wet weather plant expansion. This next one that we'll be awarding by the end of the year is the solids thickening. So we're going to get more solids, right? Our treatment plant is going to be expected to have higher loading. So we just have to handle our solids differently. So we are going to move into the design phase of the solids thickening project first quarter of next year.
It's counterintuitive to me that the solids would increase when there's less coming into the plant, less usage, right? So you're
Well,
getting more I and I for it. You're not
no,
getting-
we're getting all of the CSOs that are now going to our rivers and streams are gonna be diverted and coming to the plant.
Okay.
So all the solids that are, that we'll be capturing,
Okay.
we need to be able to
So these
manage.
solids aren't the human waste.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question,
Sure.
you're in the design phase. Does that include the ability to consider an anaerobic digestion addition at this stage, or is that not on the table?
That's not on the table at this stage. So that would have been, so what we did with the plant expansion, we had a plant expansion program manager. That was back in like 2016, 2017, and our permits went in 2018. That would be a major process change for the plant.
So that isn't an option we can look at this point.
Not at this time.
Where will the 3 new tunnels enter the plant? Not in the existing, but.
No, there is, so there's 3 projects left to be designed, solids, which will be next. The request for qualifications is going to start soon for the pump station. That's where the 3 tunnels will end. It's going to be considered a wet weather pump station, and it'll be located on the ALCOSAN campus, pretty close to the existing pump station, just upstream of it, but it's 50 feet deeper. So that design will be next. And then the last design that'll kind of wrap up the design work for the plant expansion will be 2 primary sedimentation tanks. And we'll worry about that next year. We'll get into the design of that. Okay, so plant expansion is cranking along. The regional tunnels, we got the 30% design of the Ohio River Tunnel at the end of September, spent a good bulk of October reviewing it, as you can imagine, big package. And last week we had our value engineering session. So our tunnel program manager came in and brought a nice team of national experts to really take a hard look at it. And Karen will like this, but they came up with some concepts that can really save some money. So our team is going to get briefed on the big picture VE session later this week. And then there will be a report, and we'll be able to give the final designer kind of moving into the 60% what we accept to move forward that came out of the value engineering session. So good stuff is happening with the Ohio River Tunnel, and just keeping in mind, what we're required to capture, but doing it as cost effectively as possible, and keeping those 2 goals front and center all the time. And then the other thing we're starting to move into the design phase of is the Allegheny River Tunnel near surface facilities. So this is a consolidation sewer that we're going to get designed because there's a development that may or may not get funding, and we want to make sure that our consolidation sewer is designed so that if it does start to move forward, we can put in our infrastructure, even though the Allegheny River Tunnel won't be ready, but so we're not ripping up brand new development that right after it goes in. So we've been working with the developer pretty closely. We feel like it's the right time to get that design moving forward, get the permitting moving forward, because it feels like that could happen. So
The riverfront 47 issue.
So we're interviewing, currently we shortlisted and we got proposals, and we're going through the process of reviewing those proposals to make a selection for the final designer on that one. So there's a couple things going on in the regional tunnel system as well.
Very good. Any questions for Kim? Hearing none, we'll move on. Creating a plan moving forward, Jeannie will speak to that. So we've had some discussions by the members of the committee on breaking out and forming groups, separate groups, and Jeannie and I have been discussing that, and she is prepared to make a presentation on that now.
Okay, and there's no PowerPoint involved because I hate PowerPoint. I want to start though by thanking so many of the committee for their kind wishes and concerns while I was having my spinal surgery and recovering. My last day at ALCOSAN before the surgery was at the July advisory committee meeting. My first day back was November 1st. So I'm dancing as fast as I can to catch up with everything. But I did think of you a lot. and think about how this structure might work better for the good of everybody. I have been on the Allegheny County Health Department's Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee for I think a couple decades now. And it's similar, and the ALCOSAN Advisory Committee was modeled after the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee. So I thought, why is it that that committee is working? People are able to make it to meetings, they're able to make decisions, sometimes fight with people in the room, but in any case, it's been functioning very well. And I think there are a couple reasons why. One is that committee does not meet monthly. And by the terms of the law, that committee includes people from regulated industry on air pollution, as well as air pollution reduction activists. And we have a lot of people who come to the public meetings, to our public meetings. So I thought, well, I think probably part of our issue here may be that we meet too much. And so we can't, it's always somebody different. And it's just like, I don't believe that you need to belong to the We Love to Meet Club in order to get things done. I never have. Secondly, we meet at 5:30 in the evening at the Lawrenceville Allegheny County Health Department building. The staff provides dinner so that we meet over dinner. The dinner is also available for guests if there's any left after the board, the committee gets it. And we meet from 5:30 to 7. We are always out of there by 7. We also have subcommittees that we can belong to. And they call them subcommittees in the law. We do not. We're calling them working groups. They meet in between the advisory committee meetings and provide information and updates and recommendations to the committee, as well as the issues that the staff brings to us. Everything we do goes to the entire health department, to the health department board of directors, and they make the final say. But we take a look at a whole lot of different issues, including where does the clean air fund money go? What does the staff need from the public? How do we do outreach? A whole lot of different things. And it's a very activist board. So I was thinking when I learned about the idea about the working groups, I thought that first off, to have them for half an hour before an advisory committee meeting really doesn't provide enough information for those groups to provide good recommendations and any kind of research or discussion they might want to do. And I can tell you the one time I think we had an executive session, my phone blew up with people from the community saying, why aren't you on Zoom? Mm-hmm. So we would have to then get people to the meetings earlier if we did them as executive sessions before our regular meetings. And those meetings, I thought we could have at different times. I sent you kind of the sign up summary of what people signed up for, what they thought was their first choice, etc. And this was under the assumption, first off, there were 5. This list has 6, although I'm going to beg the forbearance of the board. We're going to remove, or the committee, the finance section for now, because we need a legal opinion about exactly how we can handle that. So we're going to talk about the 5 that the committee had suggested and that we did the survey on. Not everybody was able to help with the survey, but we had a good showing. And I presented this, and far and ahead, the first choice was grow. Second choice was regionalization of municipal trunk sewers and facilities. Then you had 2 for Clean Water Assistance Fund, 2 for post-construction enhancements, and 1 for flow reduction. I thought that we could have the meetings online so that people wouldn't have to be traveling, have them at I would survey you as to what might be the good time, etc. And this way, if we had them at different times, I could help, and other staff could be provided as experts to the 5 different groups. But people could, if they wanted to, go to more than one. Nobody would be required to go to a working group, but I think it would really bring the discussion to the board in a more concrete way. Committee. I have to get all these words right. And then provide the ability to create the agenda for the advisory committee, as well as to really provide the advice that your committee is called on to provide to the board of directors. So my suggestion is we reduce the number of advisory committee meetings. I think that we could deal with the concerns about travel to ALCOSAN by having it at the end, having it start at the end, kind of end of rush hour, and going home would be a bruise. Right now, we're in the middle of the day, but going home is kind of a pain in the butt. But we could still meet in the afternoon, and that we would meet through Zoom, and there would be no takers but no minutes, because these are internal working groups of the advisory committee. So that was my suggestion. I kind of put it all out here, and this would give us an opportunity to determine when we want to meet for 2023, so that we could advertise that to the public. So I'm eager to hear everybody's ideas about it. This is what happens whenever you have to spend 3.5 months just sitting around, occasionally taking painkillers. So please,
Hey, Jean.
don't
Hey,
be
Jean.
shy.
Gene, this is Dan DeMarco. First of all, welcome back. I'm
Thanks.
glad you're back. You look fine. You look great. You look fully recovered, I guess. I apologize. I did owe you a call. I'm assuming you called because of those committee or subgroups. I'd be willing to, one of the ones that was low on response, the flow monitoring. I think less meetings is good. Whether I'm impartial, it could be every other month or quarterly, but I'm in favor of either one, to reduce to reduce it from every month. And then I'm all for 5:30 meeting at ALCOSAN with dinner. I'm in support of that.
One thing I did discover is that there was one day of the month, one evening of the month, when there are no municipal meetings, and that is the 4th Wednesday. So we could pick that one to not interfere with anybody's official meetings.
It's good to me.
So the discussions that we've had previously was formation of these working groups, which I'm sure the staff at ALCOSAN thinks this is a wonderful idea, which will involve you more times than not. But there was a pressure by the committee to do working groups. I think we should proceed with that. Is there any objection to doing that by the members, or any questions regarding that? Danielle, please.
Yeah, and I didn't have anything to say about the working groups, but I am in full support of doing an evening meeting and not meeting quite so often. I work during the day, and it's hard for me to I don't work in local government. I work a different job for and I'm president of Dormont Council in my other life. So it's just very difficult for me to arrange to try to be here for at in-person meeting at ALCOSAN during the day. And the Zoom meetings are fine, but I don't feel like we get enough. Like they're not the same. And I would like to come in person more. And I think an evening meeting would be something I could swing.
Okay, any other comments?
This is Ruth Ann. I'm full support of the evening meetings. I think the concept is great with the traffic. If you feed them, they will come. That used to be my dad's comment all the time for meetings in the evening. I think this working groups are great. Jeannie, I hate to tell you, but I have a meeting the fourth Wednesday of the month, so that's a challenge. But other than that, I just want to say welcome back. Well, welcome back, Jeannie. You look great, and I appreciate all these efforts to get us together. And I'm full support of also just maybe meeting quarterly. I think that sometimes people try and have a meeting to have a meeting, and all the staff is having to prep for it. I think it would be really productive just to do it quarterly. And we could meet in the subgroups more if you want. So that would be my comment. And no, the meeting is not a municipal. It's I'm on other boards, so that's what it's about. Thank you.
I would support a quarterly meeting of the group in person in the evening. And I think having working groups is very effective in terms of getting more dialogue, more input, and then you can have the staff attend those topically and have a better exchange of ideas. I find these are good for receiving information, but it's hard to have feeling like we're really substantively contributing anything.
And I think that leads to a very good point. There is frustration. I've had an opportunity to talk to a number of members. There's a frustration that we've been doing 2 years of education, but we've really contributed nothing to the leadership or questions or concerns to the ALCOSAN entity. So, but the working groups will only work if we as members participate in the working groups. And that is my concern that, you know, how do you get us to attend those and try to get those working? But Jeannie said she's going to handle that. I'm also somewhat disappointed that the finance review got the boot, but I understand that there's some legal issues, and Max, you'll have to figure that out for us. But we'll be looking forward to the answer to that coming up. And every ALCOSAN employee who's standing in the back rows is just cheering to have a number of committees come up. But so we're going to go, if there's no objection, we will proceed with the working group structure.
This is Kathy Sapp. I wanted to jump in and just say that, yes, I agree with quarterly. Evening is good. And also I wanted to suggest maybe 6 o'clock instead of 5:30 and still with dinner.
Okay, and we can certainly survey the members to see what the best time is. I mean, one way or another, we're trying to avoid rush hours, so we'll consider that. But if there's no objection, we'll be going to a working group structure, and we'll also be going to quarterly committee meetings of the whole.
The working groups would be on Zoom. Yeah.
Yes, working groups will be on Zoom is the question.
Or
I
if
see
you
no
like
reason to do that.
Microsoft Teams better. Yeah.
No.
And then, and I assume that the working groups will survey you, but the assumption is that they would be in the evening as well, early evening.
Well, I was thinking we could scatter those around, you
That's
know,
fine.
I really do need to ask the members about that.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
We encourage you to be on the committees. We encourage you to be on multiple committees because there's not that many of us, and to be involved wherever you can be and wherever you're comfortable. And hopefully these committees will form something that we can take to the full committee for recommendations to the ALCOSAN board. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you. Updates from the municipalities, anybody? The only update that I have is I just completed working with Julie on the transfers. And I want to say that it was a very good experience. We were able to present to ALCOSAN the fact that our prices for making repairs on the mains were much lower than ALCOSAN's prices, and that makes sense. We have smaller contractors, and they were able to accept our prices. It was a very reasonable. ALCOSAN was extremely reasonable in reaching that agreement. So we have executed the transfer agreement and working toward the ultimate transfer. But I want to impress upon everybody. I was so impressed with the very reasonableness the risk taking that ALCOSAN is willing to do on behalf of the municipality. Anybody else that wishes to comment?
Tim, this is Dan DeMarco. We had a detailed presentation by our engineer last week at our board meeting, the commissioners meeting, about the several things related to basically to the consent decree. So, you know, we're well informed. We're fortunate in one of the communities like your community. You know, we're on top of things. But of course, we did discuss the rate increases. You know, we know they are what they are. Can we have a copy of that presentation sent that I can share with my commissioners?
Karen, are you okay with that?
Is that
We'll have to, I'm gonna run it past Arletta first.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm gonna run it past Arletta first.
Okay,
to make
very
sure
good.
She's comfortable with it.
I would like to have. copies.
Dan, we're gonna run that, we have to run that past Arletta, I'm told. So
Okay.
they're gonna make that request to Arletta and see if we can release that information generally.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Is that certain financial information going generally to the public is an issue. I was surprised by a TV broadcast we showed up in my office 2 weeks ago about green. You know, I'm not really well informed on green alternatives. So he caught me coming out of work and I was on TV. But so we have to be careful of what we release, but we'll investigate that for you, Dan.
that's
and we'll have an
great.
answer.
If you can, that's great. If not, I understand. So be it. I just thought I'd share it with my board.
Makes sense.
Yeah, since we talked about a number of items. You know, last Wednesday night, our engineer gave us a presentation, basically on, you know, the INI and flow monitoring and stuff like that and next steps. But whatever, if I can, great. If not, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Next item, anything else?
Yeah, I just saw, this is Tina Doucet.
Yeah, Tina.
I just wanted to say welcome back, Jeannie. And also, I really appreciate the thought you put into the structure of these committees and also to shifting to quarterly meetings. I think it's important. We want to be functional and successful at this. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tina.
Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll move on to the annual update to the board of directors. Jeannie and I will be working on that to make a presentation to the board of directors. Once again, we haven't done anything that the board of directors knows other than we're meeting and being educated. So hopefully next year we'll have a better report that tells them what we think they ought to do. Next meeting that will be determined will include election of the chair and vice chair.
January 25th.
January 25th will be the next meeting. I will be zooming in from the great state of Florida while I'm enjoying the beginning of retirement. So, is there any public comment? Max, anything that you have to add?
No report.
Nope, no, thank you. If there's